Spiritual awakenings, they're becoming more and more common as we're going through a collective ascension. So one of the things that I was noticing, and I was actually laughing with a friend today who's also quite far along in her spiritual awakening journey, is the discovery of the two voices in our head. So this is really fascinating, actually. So there's a lower frequency voice and there's a higher frequency voice. So there's a lower self and there's a higher self. And as you awaken, you will start to notice what the lower voice sounds like and what the higher voice sounds like. So Eckhart Tolle talks about that in The Power of Now. It's actually in the super powerful opening pages of his book, The Power of Now, where he was on the verge of suicide, actually, and he had a spiritual awakening in that moment where he realized there was two voices inside of his head when he said something like, I'm tired of dealing with myself. And then he thought, how can I be tired of dealing with myself? Is there two of me? So when someone's asleep, they are being run by their programming. That's why it's called, you probably heard the terms asleep and awake. So asleep is you're on autopilot, you're on repeat mode, you're in a very reactive state. Like there isn't space for consciousness and living with intention. So that's what meditation actually brings you to, is that state. So that's like being asleep. You find yourself in repetitive patterns, going through the same thing. You just keep cycling and cycling and cycling. So it's less consciousness and more reactivity. Your subconscious mind is basically feeding you all the programming, and you're using those stories and those narratives and those belief systems as the foundation that you operate from. So when you start awakening, you start realizing that maybe you don't subscribe to those beliefs. You start questioning the thoughts in your head that are causing you to make certain comments, that are bringing in the relationships you're bringing in. You start to sort of become the observer of your thoughts. This is where the split happens. So once you start becoming the observer of your thoughts and you detach from them with less emotion, you will start to, you separate yourself from the story. And this is where you can start to create a new story. You can start to say, okay, I tend to do this when I'm in a relationship. I tend to have this habit, this belief, and it's getting me this outcome. When you split, it's like you slow down time. You become the observer and you're less invested in the emotions with it. So you can stop, make a new decision, like you get to decide, right? So you stop the repeat mode, you stop the reactivity, you stop that cycle, that hamster wheel, and you just stop. And this time and time again, when I'm speaking to people that are having awakenings, that are really becoming aware, this is exactly what happens to everybody. And they actually are startled because it's two separate things. It's almost like it's like a tape recorder. The subconscious mind stores all of the programming that you got as a kid, from the society, from your past relationships when you were small, and it just plays. So you're just being guided by these, and they're so outdated, they're so limited, and they're causing you to go on these repeat experiences. So I've been speaking to many people lately about this, and some of them are new on the spiritual journey, and they're kind of taken aback. The one woman I was talking to, she just said, I'm in an observation mode, and I'm observing like what's coming up in my ego and what it's thinking, and she's like, it's the absolute craziest stuff. Like, it's crazy. And the more you ascend, the more your ego will try to, like, the louder it gets, because it's trying to bring you back down to a place of safety. It's all part of it. But I was speaking to a friend today, and she's in this new relationship, and she's done a lot of work on herself, and the kind of men she was attracted to before, she's no longer attracted to them, and that's huge. And now she was noticing, now that she's become the observer, the same triggers that would come up with her new partner, whereas before she would have just reacted and created a whole story, and then a whole reality from that story, and tension and conflict and drama. And that's now your reality that's in front of you. But she can see the story, she can stop, and she says, no, none of this is even true. This is not something that I believe anymore. This was never actually real anyways. And then she chooses something different. She puts that out there, and there's a completely different reality that's created. So we're constantly creating our realities. Everything that we call in is a mirror for our growth. So the more we start looking at it as it's happening for me instead of happening to me, the more we can take that lesson and we up level, and we up level, up level, up level. You see people that are stuck on repeat mode, and then into their 60s and 70s. It's the same thing. It's because they've never had that awakening. So step one, just start detaching. Start sort of observing what you choose to say in certain situations, how you react, and start asking yourself, does that serve your highest and best outcome? Start questioning it and start letting go of some of those belief systems. I like to think of them as apps. Like, a lot of these apps, belief systems, narratives are just so outdated. It's time to just delete them, just shed them off. You get to choose. But I highly suggest this book, and anything by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This is going to help you up level in a big way. Also, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, is also, it's so informative and it's hilarious. It's such a funny book. Any questions, I'm always happy. You can direct message me or drop a comment below if this resonates, or I always love hearing people's stories too. What's happening to you on your spiritual awakening. Next time.